Good evening, everyone. I hope you are well. In a change tonight, I wanted to discuss something that's very important but seems to have been lacking from any discussion anywhere in the media in recent weeks, and that is childcare and child protection. If you've been watching the news today, a head teacher was jailed for 17 years for his sexual abuse of children in his care. This happens a lot. There seems to be a lot of predatory behavior towards children and adult women as well, of course. And I do believe that not enough is being done about it. And from the childcare point of view, I have it on good authority that the numbers of children who are in need of emergency temporary care has gone through the roof, especially since lockdown. And a vast portion of our council tax goes on paying for these children. Uh, because there are not enough foster care parents, local councils are forced to use agencies who charge upwards of £5,000 per week per child. So, once again, just like so much money is being fleeced from the NHS, money that is being taken from you and I in council tax is being fleeced by all of these agencies. So the question is, what can be done about it? They are two different topics, but they do merge, and the lines between them are blurred. I feel that if we look at what has the debate been over the last few weeks of the election, uh, it's been disgraceful. There hasn't actually been any sensible discussion about anything. When there is a debate, be it the leaders or anyone else, they insist on several questions in the debate. So, effectively, how can it be a debate? It is literally a response from each leader, a snipe from one leader against the other, a snipe from the audience, especially if it's question time, of course, and then they move on to the next question. Why do they not have an actual debate about an issue? And that is the topic for that entire program, so that it can be discussed, because these are serious issues. Although I have been looking into it, let's say that I know very little from the providing childcare side of things, and I certainly don't know anything more than the average person about protecting children from predators and what we do about them, whether it's in school or online or anywhere else. I only have an opinion which is no different to yours, but what I do have is a determination that we need to address this, because we can't just overlook what is happening, and these people need to be rooted out and seriously punished, because this head teacher was in a position of privilege, a position of responsibility. Was 17 years enough for what he's done? I don't know. Having said that, compared to many of the ridiculous sentences that have been handed out for similar offences, at least he got a little more than what seems to be the norm. But where children are concerned, there cannot be any any exceptions. There cannot be any justification, and they cannot be forgiven. That's how I see it. So, in terms of children that are vulnerable, uh, children that are in a position where somebody's responsible for them and can take advantage, this is uh, a situation, or these are situations where we need to exercise even more caution. I have personal experience of a vulnerable. My daughter was special needs and she had epilepsy, and she had learning difficulties and behavioral problems. And I had her on my own from 8 to 18, and it was not easy. And the worst thing about it was that I actually didn't know what was the correct thing to do. In fact, I never knew. It just felt as though there were 1,000 ways to get it wrong, but there was no way to get it perfectly right. Um, when she left primary school, she went to a special needs school because I felt that if I let her into a mainstream upper school, this was not long after we'd changed back to a two-tier system, so she would have gone into a massive school with over 1,000 pupils at 11 years old, and she would have been bullied. She was bullied when she was younger. So she went to a special needs school. They were very, very good at the school, very good and very, very nice people. But it was a really difficult situation because there was a combination of, if you like, bad behavior and manipulation of anything that she could get away with, combined with special needs. So it wasn't the right thing to do to be lenient, but it wasn't the right thing to do to be too strict. And added on top of that, that over time, it took me years to learn, but every time she would be on the verge of a seizure, close to one, then her behavior would change and she would be more aggressive. And it was hard to distinguish between aggression because she was just being rude or aggression because she was about to have a seizure. And if I got it wrong and if I told her off and then she had a seizure, then that's one of the worst feelings in the world. And so I was in this situation where I was guarding this vulnerable child with my life till she was 18. And then suddenly I wasn't allowed to guard her anymore. Uh, Now, I was quite lucky. She was 18, 12 years ago now, nearly, and I'm still tired. But at that point, she wasn't on Facebook. She had Microsoft Messenger, and I could control that. So I could restrict who communicated with her online. But now, your child could be sat next to you, and they are actually, or could actually be, uh, the subject of the target rather, of a predator. And what do we do about it? How are we going to stop this? What do we do about children and smartphones? What do we do about all of the threats that are being presented to children? And how are we going to address it? Or are we just going to sleepwalk into a crisis of our young people if we're not there already? Let me just take a look at the questions. The justice system is so corrupt under a Labour or Tory government, nothing will ever change. Good luck for the seat. Thank you very, very much. David Haynes, good evening. I'm a bit battered and bruised. I've had the media literally out for my guts the last 2-3 days. And not that I've done anything wrong, but out of 71,000 tweets on my Twitter, which were news and so on, over going back to 2010, many of which were automatically posted, like shared from news articles and feeds and so on. They found 5 or 6 that they could interpret to accuse me of being an anti-Semite. And I've had a hard time of it. And I know I've done nothing wrong. I've never said anything bad. But anyway, the point being that my friends are saying that I should take it as a compliment, because if I were not posing a threat, they wouldn't bother with me. But what upsets me more is that none of the media seem to be interested in the issues. I've had 4 different reporters speak to me. They've not asked me a single question of where I stand on housing, the NHS, childcare, immigration, care for the elderly. Nothing. They do not care about anything apart from finding mud to throw at someone to get a story. This is basically what our media has resorted to. And as I said, I've not seen a decent debate about anything, just a few exchanges of one liners and then they move on to something else. I know just what you mean. This is a holy war, mate. You answer to. I do, yes. I'm not a. I can't say I'm very religious or anything like that, but I believe I will answer for what I do. But it's frustrating because I've worked so hard for the people that have put their faith into me, and I really was hoping that they would pass me by, but they haven't. But it's only made me even more determined. But as I've said, no matter what happens, Friday morning is not the end. Friday morning is the beginning. If I'm successful, then I am going to call upon you for your advice, your suggestions, your opinions, and your support with issues like childcare. And if I'm not successful, the fight goes on and I will not give up. But that's another story. Going back to childcare, um, we need to do something. I think that it is wrong that we just accept that it is inevitable that children can be preyed upon via their phone, via the internet, and certainly not in a school by a headmaster in a position of responsibility. What is it about these people that makes them so evil? What is it about our culture now that so many of these powerful people are determined to sexualize children? It's not that long ago. Well, it is, but it doesn't feel that long ago that the process of growing up was such a beautiful process. It's not at the time, because if any of you remember being a teenager, when you're a teenager, you hate the world and it's everybody else's fault, and you're fuming because your mum kissed you goodbye at the school gates and your friends saw or whatever. But when you look back at it though, that process of going through, adolescence is or was a beautiful process. It was natural. Going back to the boy who firstly picks up a brush for the first time, and then that he's got his eye on a girl, and the spotty teenage boy with the sweaty hands plucking up the courage to ask a girl if he can hold her hand at the shop or whatever it may be. It was all beautiful. And look where we are now. Look at the material that is thrust at them in schools. In schools of all places, the material that is thrust at them. I don't know how I would react if this were if my daughter was subjected to some of the disgusting, perverted, so-called teaching that they subject 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds to. It's absolutely disgraceful. I do think that we need to do something about smartphones and their access to uh, to smartphones. It's a difficult one, but there must be a way around it. There has to be, and there is. Why don't they do it? I don't know. I'll just check the comments now. What have we got here? Uh, what are we? Okay. The UK made and the world made are corrupt. They're all controlled by the deep WF and Big Pharma. Well, it's funny you should mention the WF because Maya Tuzi's just gone live. I'll have to watch it afterwards. And he has an update about the head of the WEF with some allegations against him. I think all social media should be abandoned until you reach 18. It's no good blaming parents like the system does. No, it should be Facebook, TikTok asking for photo ID. No parent wants their child to vape, but there's only so much a parent can do. Absolutely. First of all, I believe that all social media accounts should be with identification. Then there is no need for these people, under the guise of policing the web, can just pick and choose who can speak, because that's just an excuse. In a public place, if you say something inappropriate, if you say something that is slanderous or offensive, you are accountable because you are there. People know who you are. People shouldn't be able to hide behind anonymity like many of these evil people do, like many of these predators do, like many of these perverts do. It's a simple thing to set up effectively, but they don't. And the fact that no government is pressuring them to do so has to raise questions as to why don't they? It's always the question that it raises that is the alarming question. And with regards to access to social media, yes, I do think that something needs to be done where young people are concerned, because this is getting out of control now, and we are seeing grooming on an international level globally. We're seeing an explosion of people pursuing young girls and boys as well. Um, and we're just sleepwalking into it and doing nothing about it whatsoever. But here's the problem: things seems to happen to anybody who gets too close. That is another worrying question. Uh, I watch Maya has good lad, by the way. I'm dyslexic, so I struggle with spelling and wording things. Ah, yes, but you know what? If you're dyslexic, or if you have attention deficiency problems, which I think I border on, or if you're on the spectrum in any way, these are the people who are often the most creative and the people we need most. Um, what really matters is to actually identify where people's strengths and weaknesses are from an early age. This is a real bugbear of mine, because if you've gone to university, one of the first things you do, they have some academic models that everybody seems to go through, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then Honey and Mumford's learning cycle and Kolb's learning cycle, etc. Well, the first time I came across the learning cycles was as a mature student in my 30s. And as I looked at it more, the penny dropped as to why I actually struggled in school. I was good, but I struggled because I could not concentrate. It's maybe I just had boring teachers, but if you talk to me in a monotone voice for more than 30 seconds, I'll switch off. It's gone. And you could be talking for 10 minutes and I will not hear a single word. And yet, when I was in an interactive environment, I was learning well. And it dawned on me that it wasn't me, it was the way I was being taught. But why did we go through this establishing our learning styles? Okay, for me, it was in my 30s, but for everybody else going to university after school from 18 onwards, why isn't it done when the children are 4 or 5? So we can establish who are the learners who can learn by listening and reading, who are the interactors, who are the practical ones, who are the abstract ones. Nothing is done that. And it is important because children are not learning to their full potential, and it's not their fault, just in the same way as I keep saying that children at 13 or 14 who have an aptitude and a clear and obvious desire or aspiration for a trade, a vocation, whatever that may be, should be able somehow to start their apprenticeship when they're 13 or 14. And they can fit in the academic side around it so that by the time they're school leaver age, they're fully qualified. This one size fits all is damaging and it's not helpful. Everybody's different. They're not the same. Agreed. Not everyone needs to be an academic. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, one thing for certain. A friend of mine, he does all smart home installations, that sort of thing. And from September, it's going to be on the curriculum for students who are studying to be electricians in colleges. And I went with him one day when he went to a college in Bedford, and I was watching what these youngsters were, what they had to learn to become electricians. And let me tell you something, that somebody who's gone through college to study to be an electrician has done far more learning than somebody who's gone to university to study critical race theory. That I can tell you for a fact. It was incredible. And these kids were smart. It was a pleasure to watch them figure things out, from setting up the equipment and so on and so forth, watching how each one of them went down a different road because their process of thinking was all different. It's fascinating and it's incredible. And we're stifling these children, literally suffocating them instead of inspiring their natural talent and creativity, whatever that may be. We don't need a world full of people with an ology degree. We need engineers. We need electricians. We need all of these people. And I don't think that we're investing enough or doing enough to encourage people into it. Uh, there's so much still that we need to research into technology and so on. Look at our stock market compared to the US. The S&P 500 has Google, Facebook, Apple, so on. Look how much it's grown over the last few years, whilst ours has basically, for all intents and purposes, been stagnant. But look at the companies that make up the FTSE All Share Index: Bat, tobacco, and you know 18th century nonsense.com or whatever. It's just ridiculous. No, not enough new technology. And there are the people in this country who are so capable, and many of these youngsters really do have aptitude, but they just need the opportunity to be creative with it rather than destructive. Because some of these kids running around estates, you know, dismantling scooters, given the right opportunity, could be so good. They could be so productive, but they get bored. Why do people get bored? Invariably, not always, but invariably, it is those with the most active minds who get bored. And if they have active minds, that means that they have potential. And if that potential is not being realized, something is wrong, and more than likely, it's not their fault. That's just my opinion for what it's worth. And yes, so many useless degrees. Um, you may be aware, in with regards to degrees, one of the policies for reform, again, it will take time and effort, is that there are many degrees out there that don't need to be 3 years. They can be 2 years. So why are students or the universities dragging it out over 3 years so that the students walk away with 3 years worth of fees and living expenses when it could be done in two? They may work a bit harder, but I think it's worth it. If you've been to university for many degrees, you're lucky if you have 10 or 15 hours of lectures in a week. I do think that it's capable to take one third off of many degrees. I'm not talking medicine or anything like that, but some of the others definitely. Different learning styles, absolutely, absolutely. Why did they get rid of the old schools? Well, happened here in Northampton, unfortunately, and it was under Labour in the 70s, and the grammar school on the Billing Road, if you're in Northampton, I wanted to go to it, and I knew it was a great school. And a year or two before I got to it, it had changed from the grammar school to the boys' school. It wasn't until I got there that I realised how bad it had become. It wasn't the teacher's fault. Literally, the teachers were used to a grammar school. Maths teacher would just walk in and start writing logarithms on the board, and when he got to the bottom, he'd start rubbing the top out and carry on, and he expected you to keep up. And then suddenly the floodgates opened, and he had all of these unruly kids, and the teachers did not know what to do. It was It was very sad. Uh, I went to school in the 70s. I used to have to stand on the stage in assembly because I could not read or write. So I got put in front of the rest of the school in a dunce hat. That is, these are relics of the past that I really, really, really despise. Um, so sometimes when we look back, this happens a lot on Facebook, doesn't it? Glorifying that everything was wonderful. Uh, in some ways, yes, but in many ways it wasn't. And here's a classic example: bullying in school, teachers caning children constantly. It was There were elements that were very, very bad. It wasn't all rosy. So it's not about us trying to go backwards. We need to go forwards from here. We always need to go forwards, but to go forward, we must always question what we're doing and look for a better way. I don't know the answers, but what I do know is that given the opportunity, I would be pushing people who know much better than I do to come up with suggestions to find better options. Surely that's how it should be done. Uh, Some schools used to have bricklayer and care mechanic training for from 14-year-olds. I think yes they did, and I do think that there should be much more of that. I don't agree with this mollycoddling them until they're 18. It's Children are capable. Children have fought battles and won wars. They have unpolluted minds. Their minds are so sharp, so quick. They can pick things up. They're creative, and sometimes I'm not I'm not denigrating universities in any way, but sometimes there's a profound change before and after university, and it's not always for the better. It's almost as though it's almost as though their radar of their mind has literally been narrowed down. Um, that's why younger children who the possibilities are endless, and I do think that it's unfair that children who really, really don't want to be academic don't have another option. They should have another option. It's better for them, it's better socially, and it's better in the workplace as well, because if we did things correctly, within a decade, we would have all the tradespersons and all the right people that we need. What would be wrong with that? Uh, there used to be technical schools as well. Yes, absolutely. Again, I don't know how that would work. I think with a two-tier system where they go to the secondary school at 11, that's possibly a little too early to decide if a child is more vocational than academic. But certainly I believe at 13 or 14, um, it it's possible to make a decision then, I think. But there are people who would know better than I do. Sorry, what was this one? I'm now 58, never learnt to read and write till I was in my 20s. But you did. You did learn to read and write. Um, I love ongoing education. And again, I'm a real believer in the availability of education, not just for young people, but for adults, and continued education. And in that respect, it should be as cheap as possible, because this is crucial to our society and our workplace, especially in light of how things are going to change within the next 5 years, definitely within the next 10 years, because artificial intelligence is going to put a lot of people out of work. We need to have the facility to retrain people. It doesn't mean that there won't be careers for them. We always, the things always change, but people will need to be have the opportunity to learn new skills so that they don't end up on the scrap heap, or they don't end up giving up. There's nothing more beneficial to a society than education for all, and a broad range of education, and that is education, not indoctrination. Uh, yeah, my brother and my nephew are so good technically. Yes, I mean, when you see somebody who's naturally technically minded, it can be sometimes so impressive. Um, and it's often impressive because you can see sometimes how their mind has figured something out that those of us who are not that way inclined wouldn't have done in a month of Sundays. My nephew is a trainee electrician. I'm very, very pleased to hear that. And if he'd have, I don't know what year he's in, but as I understand it, that electricians now have to do an element of smart home installation. And if he's interested in how smart home installations work and so on, get in touch with me. I'm happy to put him onto my friend. He's the sole concessionaire for some of the best smart home equipment that you can buy, and I'm sure that it will be something that he'd be interested in the future. We have a shortage of people who can do coding. Uh, that I didn't know, and in that respect, how would you? How do you expect? What do you predict artificial intelligence, the effect of artificial intelligence to be on programmers, on systems analysts, that sort of thing? Because from the little that I've seen, it AI can pick up faults in coding in seconds that would take manually would take hours and hours and hours. So is AI a threat to people who specialize in coding or systems analysts or that sort of thing, or not? I think it might be, but I might be wrong. What was this one? Labour and about bringing in people from other countries. Now there's a surprise. We should train the unemployed. We should train everyone. As I've said before, the national minimum wage is fine as a starting point. It's a good grounding for people to start on national minimum wage. It's a good grounding for everybody to start to spend some time working in a fast food place or a restaurant, or doing something menial at the base rate, because it helps to give you grounding and hopefully have respect for money, the effort that is needed to earn it. But 5 years later or less, if people are still on or around national minimum pay, something is wrong. It may well be their fault in this in the sense that perhaps they haven't looked around to better themselves, but I would say that the blame could also lay elsewhere, because why are we not making access to education and learning skills much more simple and available, so that somebody who wants to just better themselves can literally speak to someone and establish what they like, what they can do, what they can't do, and be offered all different things that they can learn. There are so many things that you are able to train for in a matter of days or weeks, that can take you from national minimum pay to 50% more than national minimum pay, and upwards. And that's just the starting point. So why are there people who are on national minimum pay years after they started working? Who's let them down? And why do we not make further education and training and retraining much more simplified and accessible? Because we need to train people. And it's very easy to simply blame the individual. And I'm not making a case for or against anyone, I'm just talking generically. But sometimes, if people, uh, one of the categories of unemployed that is often um, beyond uh, beyond redemption are over 55s, and it's often men 55s or over. If they become unemployed, they often give up or get depressed, or just lose the will to learn or to do anything. That doesn't mean that they're lazy. These are people that maybe have worked all their lives. It's just natural. And what happens is people get disheartened, they lose their motivation over time, and then we have these career politicians in suits who just look at them as an easy target to cut expenses. Perhaps they should cut expenses to the Bank of England and to all of their quangos and all of these horrid people who are fleecing the NHS. That would be a good starting point. And as for people who are out of work, how about rather than offering them, if you don't take this, that's it, you're not getting any money. How about giving them an opportunity to learn something in the right environment, in the right way? I'm not saying it's easy, but sometimes people who lose their motivation, who begin to give up, it's not laziness, it is just basically disillusionment and people becoming disheartened. We're human. That's what happens. It's not just about forcing people to work and take jobs. It is about inspiring them and holding their hand until they actually become motivated. And then once you've got them going, you normally find that they will then succeed in perpetuity of their own accord by themselves. Uh, On a serious note, one social media that needs bringing down a peg or two is Facebook. They're allowing answer videos. Uh, yes. Um, isn't it strange how one simple word, whatever it might be, and you get a post taken down that's not actually meant in any offensive way whatsoever, and they don't answer you, and yet they allow some really horrid things to appear and to stay on there even after being reported. Yes, that is correct. I did a Taylor Swift degree at uni. Now I have 17 exes. Kerry Swan, sense of humour. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much. At times, we do need a bit of lightheartedness, especially now. Uh, uh, Excellent, thanks. My pleasure, my pleasure. I'm a cobbler by trade. I can rip a pair of shoes apart and rebuild them, but I could not write my own name when I did my apprenticeship. Wow, wow. Cobbler, well, are you from Northampton, David? Obviously, we're a big shoe town, but not so much anymore. I do remember all of the shoe factories around Northampton when I was a little boy. My favourite place, as many of you may know from because I keep holding my Meet Your Candidate meetings there, is the Charles Bradlaugh. I remember it as a shoe factory. Obviously, in the 70s, early 70s, as a youngster, I could go out and walk around, and I'd walk from, one member of family to another, and I could pass countless shoe factories, and they fascinated me. It was the smell of and the noise and all the different machines and everything. Absolutely fascinating places they were, and it is an absolutely fascinating art. AI can do so much. I think they still need humans. I think yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Completely agree. Uh, Correct. Correct. I completely agree. Yes, I got stuck on the minimum wage job for years till I got my act together when I was older. Um, in you commented again because I was just going to ask you a question. Uh, I was only entitled to benefits, but I wouldn't have had a clue, and glad I never been on benefits. Now, having been there, Jason, does what I've said make sense to you? Does it resonate with you? Am I barking up the right tree, or am I off kilter here? I do believe that I'm right. I know that in business, I've had experience of it. I have had experience of um, this goes all the way back to 2010 when they had this long term unemployed back in the workplace. For anybody who was unemployed for over 6 months, had to go into a workplace for a certain amount of time to get experience, to get them active and to get something on their CV. Um, and the people who came to me were men in their 50s mainly, and they were all lovely people who were just down in the dumps and despondent. But surprisingly enough, with some inspiration, many of them actually went off and got jobs. And it can be done. So we just need to do it much, much more, I believe. Uh, I can't work now. I'm too ill with lots of problems due to radical cancer treatment. The radio has destroyed my insides. I'd love to work, but I can't. I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm from the southeast London. I work for Francis Rossi from Status Quo's dad. He taught me. Wow. Okay. And I do like Status Quo still. Uh, okay. Who else we got here? Maria, good evening, Anthony. Keep up the good work. Good evening, Maria. Thank you very much for joining us. Um, I I'm going to actually uh, rewind to the topic, and I don't expect to solve anything tonight. But what I would like from you, I'll just finish this. I'm not in your area, but enjoying your videos. I'm voting Guy Mortimer for St Ives Cornwall for Reform UK. Thank you so much. We need to urgently need to, as I said, the fact that the media are coming down on us all so hard should demonstrate to you how much they fear what we're going to do. And going back to the topic of the day with regards to children, I'm not for 1 minute expecting to get answers or solutions in one video, not in two, not in a month, not even in several months. But we need to discuss this topic. I'm really annoyed that nothing about this has been discussed in an entire election campaign. Do any of you know what the position is of either leader or any of the prominent faces with regards to children, safety for children, predators who prey on children, online grooming, uh, whether it's local, domestic, or international, predators in the school, teachers, head teachers, like this wrong word, this monster who was jailed for 17 years today. We've not heard a single word. And yet all they do is distract us by concentrating on squabbling on each other's, squabbling about what they can throw at each other. And we need to act where children are concerned. We need to protect them from predators who reach them through their phones. We need to protect them from material that can brainwash them, that is so easily accessible online. And when I say brainwash them, I'm talking in a personal, inappropriate material that is not just inappropriate, it is actually, I don't know what the right word would be, but it is misogyny in the worst form. And the problem is that it's not just the boys who are watching, it is the girls. So not only are boys being incorrectly misled on how they should treat girls, but girls are also becoming misled on how they should accept being treated. Each one is as wrong as the other. Are we just going to continue to allow that and just say, well, it's down to the parents? Should something be done about it? Should anything inappropriate be banned by default and only be available subject to age verification and so on and so forth? Would that be so difficult? Individual broadband operators can do that. So why isn't that the case across the board? These are issues that we need to address, and we're not addressing them. Nobody's talking about anything, to be honest. Nobody's discussing anything, even with regards to the NHS. What have they discussed? We've got Labour promising 40,000 extra appointments a week, 2 million a year, and they haven't got the staff to do it, because I know from the other candidate for Northampton South and a few other people who I know who work within the NHS that the NHS staff are at the end of their tether. It doesn't matter if they were offered more money, they can't physically work anymore. That's all we've had. All we've had how they're going to stop the boats and squabbling about how they're going to stop the boats. Our country, our borders, we decide who comes in. So ultimately, do we have a leader, or do we have basically a 6 foot jelly man? I really don't know. But no proper discussion or debate about anything, just an insult. Where are we now? Sorry, who's this? Let's have a look. I'm not seeing your Oh, sorry, I think I posted that already. Sorry about that. Right. 4 in my household. Thank you, Jason. Absolutely delighted to hear that. Thank you so much. And I don't know what the no was for. I forgot what I said. This is why you need to pay for attention when I'm talking, because I actually sometimes forget what I'm up to. But there are advantages to being like me. Madonna didn't let her children watch filth on TV. Train UK people to do the jobs that are needed in NHS. Absolutely. Again, with I would like to delve more into the NHS. I'm hoping that perhaps the other candidate who's a paramedic in the NHS can join me. But to be honest, in his defence, most of the time he's too worn out because he's a working paramedic as well as campaigning, and he does work some gruesome shifts. But hopefully I can get him to join me, or I would be happy to have somebody who works in the NHS to join me in a live stream, because there's only so much that I can refer to, because I don't work in the NHS, but I have been putting some very good information together as a guide of where things are. And yes, we can train more nurses. We need to make working conditions better. We need to make their pay better, because why would somebody work as a nurse under those terrible conditions when they can do something that's much easier for the same, or not far off the same salary? That's one of the reasons that we promised 3 years tax-free allowance. And if you serve the NHS for 10 years, you'll get your student loans written off and no interest on student loans. Hopefully that will bring some nurses back in, because every nurse or doctor that we can bring back into the NHS is one less agency nurse or doctor. And as I said the other day, I couldn't believe it when I was told that a locum doctor can be paid several £1,000s for a half day. That's how much money is being siphoned out of the NHS, and we need to address it. Next one. You've got to remember, most of the worst pedos are in government, the police, the royals. The pit runs deep. Mush. Yes, David. To be honest, after the battering I've had from the media in the last 2-3 days, um, I'm trying to just mind my P's. I'm petrified. I'm actually scared to speak. Really, I'm so battered and bruised, and I just want to make it to the finish line in one piece, because I fought so hard to get here. And but then there are situations like with what you've just said, where I am literally tempted to say, "Well, to hell with it." You're right, sir. I'm afraid. Look how many have been outed in government. Look at that horrible monster, Cyril Smith, whose actions were covered up for years. They knew what he was doing. The celebrities who've been covered up. And these are the people who deign to actually lecture us about, did you use this word or that word? And in that respect. Oh, you know, you need to be cancelled. Uh, Paramedics do a grand job. Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's so passionate about it. It's untrue. Lord Mountbatten. So Edward Heath. So was Prince Philip. I can't read this out, David, because I'm gonna get hung. Other people can read it though. Uh, they are too powerful. Yes. Well, think about what we intend to do. The money we want to take away from these people, defund the BBC, stop the Bank of England paying millions, billions rather, etc. We're treading on the toes of some really, really powerful and very nasty people, and this is why they are out to get us in any way, shape, or form. If you step back from the narrative and the noise and just look, what are the reporters focusing on? What are they doing? What is mainstream media actually concentrating on? All they're doing is basically controlling the narrative because they want to get the globalist puppets into power. That's it. They don't care about anything else. And they'll do anything to get their way. We have an aging population as well, so we need to prepare for that. Absolutely. Um, Encourage them to always come to you with any concerns, whether it be big or small. Remember, what is small to adults can be very big to a child. Yes, I completely agree. I, again, I just don't think enough is being done. And in all honesty, this may be the wrong thing to be saying as somebody who's standing for candidate, but I don't know what the answer is here. I want to find an answer, but I can't have the answers for everything. I just can't. But I believe that there are people out there who could help me to find the answers, not just me, but people who feel the same way as I do. Because I know firsthand how difficult it can be with a vulnerable child. Um, she's an adult and she's still vulnerable. But at this point, I can't do anything about it. That's another story. But in reality, we can't just stand by and allow these monsters to uh, to pursue our children. We cannot allow it. And in the same way, I'm sorry if this won't go down very well to those of you of a more leftist persuasion, but I am totally against people being able to hide behind race or faith or anything, culture or anything else where children are concerned. And I think you know what I'm referring to. We have had too much of this going on, too many cover ups. And if it were down to me, not only would I vigorously um, push further investigations into grooming everywhere, but more importantly, I would want to pursue those who facilitated it, those who turned a blind eye because they were more concerned about their political correctness than the welfare of a child. I don't know which one is worse, the monster or them, or both equally. Uh, be careful what you post. I am. I'm very, very careful. I'm very, very careful. Uh, they will do a hit job on you. I'm afraid so. Yeah, I should have thought of that. Sorry, don't read my comments out, mate. It's okay, David. Thank you. It's all right. I'm just, like I said, you know what the situation is. Um, but ultimately, as I said, at this point, um, I would I just want to throw this out there where children are concerned. I will come back to it. Whatever happens on Thursday, Friday is the beginning. I reach out to you on Friday, um, either representing Northampton or fighting for it. Either way, I'm here fighting for my town, Northampton, my county, and my country. It's not going to change either way. Okay, if I'm successful, I'll have a louder voice. Um, it will probably get me into trouble, but there again, that's why I'm here. Uh, I would like to ask you, what are your plans for the steel industry? As are you going to get Tata to keep the blast furnaces or not? Um, I don't know enough about that, but I would like industry here as much as possible, because we've basically put ourselves in a situation where we are wearing the I am green badge because we've outsourced all of our industry. Uh, is China's industry cleaner than ours? No, it's not. China is choking the entire planet, and yet we've got these people who are making us all suffer in their quest so that they can look good when they go off to their COP28 and COP29 meetings, whichever one's next. So yes, our steel industry, I believe, should be here, because it is a crucial part of everything. And I really don't think that it should be in the hands of anyone else but our country. Uh, I don't know too much about the ins and outs of it beyond what I've said. Uh, Sorry, which one was this? Okay. Media will always distort what we say online. Oh, won't they just? We know there are monsters at every level. Don't read it. Certain subjects are taboo. Mhm. We know there are evil people at the top and at all levels. Yes, and I am treading carefully. I am treading carefully, but at the same time, I'm here to put up a fight for people. And what's really got me in a big way, as I said before, is last year when I was first going to stand as an independent. I was angry and I was on a mission. I don't care, I'm not going to get anywhere, but I am going to say my piece. And then as I looked into Reform's policies and I agreed with their policies, just about everything, then obviously then I joined Reform. And then the next thing, the election was called, and starting from a standing start, no team, no funding, nothing at all. Everything's been funded by myself, as with many of us. But through this process, I've made friends, I've made connections, I've had people offer their support, people offer to go out and give out flyers for me, people come to meetings, people come to meet me face to face, people message, phone, etc. And the questions, the messages of the support, the completed forms on my website, people taking the time to fill in my questionnaire, asking people what their opinions are, what matters to them, 10 questions I put together. And that's one of the best things I have done, because I have so much primary data direct from people, which is absolutely wonderful. And along the way, this process has changed, because it's now about these people. And it's these people who really are desperate to see things change because of this horrid climate that has descended on us by stealth over the last couple of decades. Something needs to be done, and they will do anything to stop us. Uh, and the CPS ignore a lot. And who used to be the boss? I think we know. Yes, I'm afraid so. Yes, we need to have effective and robust child protection procedures in place. Absolutely. Nobody should be above scrutiny. Nobody should be above the law. And I do believe, I don't know, I've never worked in these industries. I've never worked in policing. I've never worked in probation or anything like that. But I'm confident that there are procedures, strategies of operating where it makes it much, much harder for people to conspire and cover up uh, anything that is happening. And we need to implement the correct procedures to stop this. And we need to come down very, very hard on anyone who covers up anything. Uh, No one has all the answers. Yes, we all need to speak wisdom of others. Absolutely. Um, as I see it, whether somebody is elected as an MP or if they're fortunate enough to be a minister, if I had my ultimate, I'd love to be housing minister because housing is something I know a lot about, and I would be so passionate about attacking the housing crisis head on. But I already have in mind people I would draw upon who know facts and figures and information and all sorts more than I do. Because wherever you are, it is about being grounded and being modest and having the humility to think, I am now in this position, whether it's an MP or a minister or prime minister. I need to draw upon people who know about whatever it is that I'm dealing with. And that's how it should be. But unfortunately, these people jump on an ego trip and effectively they don't lead. They don't, they don't engage. They just dictate. And that is a big part of our problem. Let's go more in depth next week. Yes, I agree. I will actually put a message out. I'd love your questions. I'd like to do a little bit more research. And I would like to cover this several times and take notes and learn and see what I can do to going forward. Look what's happening in the States. It's all coming out now. Yes, that is correct. When we see you Friday, you will be an MP, mate, and you'll make a bloody good one. Thank you so much. I don't know. I'm daunted either way, to be honest. I'm actually, because I don't just want to. I don't just. I don't just want to like win my seat and then come back to you with some flyers at the next election. That's not what I want to do. So I'm going to have a lot on my plate, but that's why I'm standing. Otherwise, what would be the point of me standing? Really, what would be the point? I'm here because uh, there's lots of things I'm passionate about, and I hope that that comes across. Um, One really important thing is to stop our water being poisoned with chemicals along with our food. Drinking water from a tap has given me bladder cancer. I'm sorry to hear that, and I completely agree. We need to do something. Our water, our farmland, our children, um, the list just goes on and on. You seem a really good man. Well, I try to be. Yeah, I try to be. I'm not perfect, but yeah, I do try to be. Um, Thank you so much. And there's a lot of reform candidates who I've met, and I'm not saying it because I'm just bigging up the Reform Party, because they're everyday people. Um, I'm very close with the other candidates here in Northamptonshire. We chit chat and etc. I've been together at meetings and so on. I've got to know quite a few of the candidates from the Leicester area. Again, lovely people. Several of them are retired people who have come out of retirement and out of living a nice, quiet life to throw themselves in the limelight to actually uh, do something for their country. What does that say about them? And these aren't people who've been in the public eye and they can't give it up. They're not people who have been career politicians who just won't leave things alone. They're people who are standing up saying, I'm standing up for something. Before I go, I'm standing for something. And that says a lot for them. Drain the swamp. Hallelujah. I remember a Channel 4 documentary on released paedophiles, and he was put in a flat with a balcony looking onto a school. And they give them new names. And they give them. I'm sorry. If you behave that way towards a child I'm sorry, but you lose your right to anonymity. You lose your right to be able to live comfortably in wherever it is, like this person here, when your victim is going to be haunted for the rest of their lives. That, to me, that's not right. I'm sorry, it's not. And what do we have here? His probation officer was under his control as he manipulated him. Why doesn't that surprise me? Okay, I think I'll call it a night um, before I pass out, because I'm absolutely drained today. Um, Please feel free to put questions together. You can even email me. I'll put my email on here so you can see it. Uh, oh, there we go. Northampton North at reformuk.com. You can email me if you have any questions, anything you want to ask. And some point soon, we'll cover this topic again. I'd like to go rotate around different topics because, to be honest, I'm sick to death of hearing mainstream media and our career politicians circling around the same points day in, day out, without talking about anything that really, really matters. And there are many things that matter. So many topics I have lined up for you that I want to look into, from children and childcare and protecting children, to the dangers of that women are facing in a climate of increasing misogyny, coercive behaviour, the NHS, education, of course. The list goes on and on, but nobody's talking about any of it. So, with your kind indulgence, I would be honoured to be able to cover these topics, and hopefully, I can draw on your knowledge in the future and learn from you. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Have a wonderful remainder of the evening. I'm going to be out campaigning. I've got a meeting. Although when I go out campaigning, I'm quite careful, to be honest. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm looking over my shoulder. But I will be with you again tomorrow night, I hope, unless for whatever reason I'm just completely exhausted. Thank you very much. Good night, and I'll see you soon. And here's a quick slideshow of Northampton taken by myself.